I'd like to thank everybody for coming out for this today, October 4th, the Community Development Committee. In the room with me is Councilman Hudson and Johnson. I'm Chris Williams. We have one item on the agenda today, and it is the update on the D-Up property conveyance. And I'll turn the floor over to our Assistant City Attorney.
Thank you. If you'll recall, in I believe it was June, D-Up, the nonprofit organization, came before the committee to provide you all detail about a project that they were working on in the Washington Street area where I think they recently had moved to. And at the time, it was kind of an informational, this is what we're putting together and this is what we would like to have happen. And so since then, the city attorney's office has been looking at what the possible conveyance options would be or property disposal options. I think I recall from the meeting that certainly they were looking for, I think, a donation of the property. And so we just wanted to take a deep dive for the committee members to understand what the different disposal options were and then a recommendation that you could move forward with. So just to recap, the city currently owns two vacant parcels located at 621 and 627 Washington Street. Those are the parcels that D-Up has requested the city in some way convey to them. Under North Carolina law, there's generally three areas or three options for conveyance. It would be what often we hear donation, but it's really a private sale for non-monetary consideration. Option two would be a sale, which is a more traditional conveyance method where here you can either have a competitive bidding sale, which would include a sealed bid, an upset bid, or a public auction. And then the other option under sale is a private sale for fair market value. And then the final would be a lease. So if we look at the first one, which is a donation or private sale for non-monetary consideration, and I'm not going to go through all of this in extreme detail, but so that you can have the reference, we can go over just high level here and have any questions answered. But the city is authorized to make a real property conveyance to a nonprofit organization so long as it is conveyed to an entity that is carrying out a public purpose for which the city would be authorized to appropriate funds and carry out that public purpose. With this, there are procedural requirements where City Council would adopt a resolution authorizing an appropriate official to convey the property. We would publish notice in the newspaper and then complete the conveyance at least 10 days after the notice is published. The important thing to remember here, and I know that you guys are familiar with it, is that there would have to be the public purpose clause attached to this property. There would be no subsequent sale, so we could not convey it to them and then they turn around and sell it to someone else for monetary consideration. And they would need to continue the public purpose or it would return to the city. In addition, to that, there can be other conditions associated with how they're going to use it. A public purpose is not defined anywhere in the North Carolina general statutes, but there is case law that directs what a public purpose would be. Some of the questions are if there's a reasonable connection between what a local government does and what the entity is programming or the services that they're providing. The case law has found that there are some activities that should be reserved exclusively for the private sector, and that would not be appropriate for the city to do. And also generally that the activity must benefit the public generally as opposed to any special interest or one individual. Here, what has been presented or was presented at the June meeting and provided so far from D-Up seems like it would meet the public purpose requirement if we went in that direction. I believe you all saw the presentation. It was related to community organization, related to, I think they started off as fitness. Now they're expanding their community outreach, doing education, fitness. Specifically, it was presented that the two city-owned parcels would be for a black box theater. So then you would look at, and the reason I kind of did a more general analysis was in the event that any of their plans shifted, if some of the community stuff came into where the theater is, or during the design a process, something had to shift for any reason. But I think any of them would most likely meet the public purpose threshold. so long as they're continuing to serve the community and that they continue to use it this way. Just, for clarity's sake, you could also go the route, as I mentioned, of a sale. If you went through the competitive bid process, then you would follow all of the statutory requirements, which we've listed here, just related to notice, deposits, all that sort of stuff when we do a competitive bid sale. I don't think that's the direction that the organization most likely would want to go, but it certainly is an option. And then the other option would be a private sale for fair market value, where essentially we would go out and get an appraisal of the property, see what it appraised for, negotiate the sale. And with any of the sale-related ones, note that there would be no public purpose requirement. So the entity would own it outright with no reversion back to the city for any reason. And then final option would be a lease, which, the city does somewhat regularly for property that the city owns. If it is a term of 1 year or less, there are no real procedural requirements. City council can just authorize a city official to go forward with executing the lease. If it is a lease term between 1 year and less than 10 years, then the city would publish notice at least 30 days before a regular meeting, adopt a resolution at the meeting, and then execute the lease afterwards. If we were to have such a lease, we could attach any conditions that we determine are in the best interest of the city. And the issue here for consideration would be that a lease under North Carolina law with a total term of more than 10 years is treated as the sale of the property. And then you go back up to the sale section where we talked about all of the different ways that a city is authorized to sell real property. So there's a few exceptions to that related to telecommunications and tower equipment and the like. But here, what we have been presented by DUP is they're not in that business whatsoever. So that wouldn't be applicable here. So the lease would have to be for less than 10 years if we were to go that route.
Is that 10 years total? So if they did a
That's right.
6 year and then a 6 year, it would automatically,
Yeah.
it would
So-
have to be a sale.
You'll notice I use total term because the way that it's defined is you add any of the amendments and the renewals, any extensions, any automatic renewals, it all adds up to the total term, and it can't be more than 10 years. So, if a lease was a way that the city was interested in going, then certainly you could do individual 10-year leases, but I don't know if the organization would have comfort with that. I'm assuming if they're putting this investment in, they're probably going to want a longer than 10-year lease, but we wouldn't be able to have a total term that goes beyond that time. Councilman Jefferson, I'm sorry that you missed some of the earlier discussion, but we were just talking about the various conveyance options for the DUP property. And we gave you a memorandum so you can kind of refer to it. And if you all have any questions, I'm happy to discuss the 3 different options. I think so long as the organization understands the way that the public purpose requirement works and that it would revert back to the city if it stopped using it for that purpose, that seems most likely is the best option to go forward with.
Number one. Is there any advantage to a lease?
Well, the city would certainly,
Back.
be able to retain, it would be less legal documents going back and forth, because if you think about the fact that if we were to go with option 1 of a donation or a private sale for non-monetary consideration, because really, anytime that you have a legal transaction, you need what we call consideration. That's usually money. Here, since there's no money being exchanged hands, the consideration is that they're promising to use it for a public purpose. And so we would have a deed that conveyed it to them with that clause and that promise. Should they, no longer meet that promise, it would then revert back to us. So there would be a little more paperwork in a lease. It would simply be a straightforward lease. And then if they stopped using it for that purpose, then the lease would end. But I don't know, that would be a question for them as far as what their comfort is with the lease and the investment that they're going to put forward into it. But it's certainly an option so long as we would we would stay under the 10-year term, or right at, I believe you can have, it's 10 years, so it would be 10 years, but not more than 10 years.
This is Councilman Williams. Would What would be the next step if we move forward with whatever option as so far as communicating that information to the, to DEP? Like, are y'all going to talk with them directly so they can fully understand this?
We can-
Before it actually hits, when would it come up, the 17th?
That would be the next council meeting that it could. You know, I think certainly we could coordinate with the manager's office to discuss it with DEP. And then the next step for you all would be to move it forward to city council, where then there would be a resolution authorizing a city official to move forward with the conveyance. And then also the public notice. So I think we'd have to confirm and make sure we have enough time with the public notice. If not, we could, you know, go to the next meeting in November.
I think I missed a step. So you,
Probably would have to be, because I think it's the 30 days, yeah.
so we wouldn't move forward with an option to be voted on the 17th.
You could, I think if you want to move it out of committee, you certainly could move forward saying that we recommend a private sale, you know, with non-monetary consideration, a donation, however we want to say it. Now, should you wish for there to be, I didn't know if anybody from DEP was going to be here today or not. They might be listening online, but we could certainly, you know, reach out to them first and then move it forward, however you want to handle it. But, you know, I think we wanted to, at the last meeting, at least our office wasn't prepared for them to say, okay, please, now let's donate it. We wanted to kind of go through the process and work through the options and present them to you so that you could make an informed decision on what conveyance you wanted to use for it. So,
All right,
I mean, from a timing standpoint, do you have a preference?
Well, how long is the public notice?
I think it's 30 days.
Oh,
But that's after council approves, correct?
Yeah, I think we do the resolution.
We can't do anything in committee, can we? It's 30 days after the
Yeah.
council approves.
at the council, yeah, then,
okay, so we could get council approval on the 17th, do the 30-day notice, and then schedule it for a
The-
future meeting after that.
uh,
But I think given, you know, giving us the opportunity to meet directly with the folks from the,
Yeah.
to discuss those options and make sure that they're comfortable with option one,
any,
if that's
okay.
what the committee recommends.
Any questions to staff on this matter?
No, I don't have, well, maybe one question, actually, and this is Councilman Jefferson. So what you're saying is, you know, if the committee recommends for approval, full council approves, 30-day period, and then at that point, it comes back to council? Did I just hear that get said? Or at that point, you can actually do the conveyance? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think you could adopt the resolution authorizing a city official to convey the property. So I don't think it would need to come back to council again after that.
So it's just,
Correct.
You could adopt that on the 7th, and then you would have that 30-day window before we actually convey the property to the client.
Yeah. State it so that at the end of 30 days, give authorization to convey.
Right, because we'll have to certainly, you know, draft
Gotta
the
do the
deed and get the legal documents and all of that, but what council has to do is to authorize the resolution to do that.
I see what you're saying. So essentially, in terms of a timeline, if we were to make the recommendation today, then it would go to the meeting on November 7th. And then from that day, there would be the 30-day.
October 17th.
Are we looking to do it the second meeting of this month or the first meeting of November? Because I heard 7th for November and 17th for October.
17th for the council to vote.
There's a council meeting on both dates,
Right,
the October
right,
17th.
right. But the
and then-
7th would be the day that we actually authorize the conveyance. You see what I'm saying?
But what would we do on the 17th? I'm lost.
On the 17th, you would actually vote to go ahead and approve the resolution to move forward with the conveyance of the property by donation. That would be the resolution that you would be approving on the 17th, if we chose, if it moved out of committee failed.
And then what will we be doing on the 7th? Because that's not 30 days out.
Nothing's required.
So nothing on the
Oh, we
7th?
don't have to come back, okay, okay.
Okay. So not 7th, nothing on 7th?
One of those 2 days, either the 17th or the 17th.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so that was the one thing I was trying to just get clear. I guess, I mean, amongst the committee, is there any heartburn about going with option one?
Not for me.
Whatever they're most
Comfortable with?
So you want, if I can word it right, I'll make a motion that to authorize the legal staff to contact DEP and discuss the 3 options with them, and come back with a recommendation for vote on October 17th.
I'm sorry, I'm just
And
reading
I know I can probably make that easier.
notice provision.
Could you just not say,
Wouldn't-
we make the motion
Yeah, I think that's fine.
to approve option one?
Well,
Well,
they may-
I think
they
you
may
could-
want
To
more.
council for a positive recommendation.
Yeah, make a recommendation to move forward to city council with the recommendation that the city do a private sale, non-monetary consideration, a donation to DUP of the properties.
That's fine. I'll make that motion.
There's
Now
a second.
second.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That moves forward.
And staff will work to communicate with DUP so that they understand that, because I think certainly we would just want to make sure that they're on board with that option, understanding the public purpose aspect. And, certainly should anything in their plans shift, then we would just want to be kept abreast of what the programming and the services that will be offered at the site of the city-owned properties is.
Well,
Yes.
Okay.
yeah. Team, I'll say this just because I may have missed a chance to kind of talk about it earlier. I think this is a great move for a lot of reasons. Washington Street is a great area of town in terms of its history. It's also great in terms of where it's located geographically. It's right next to a freeway that comes into town. It's right next to the Market District. It's right next to the university. It's right next, and really, I think I did the calculation. It's a 16-minute walk from the stadium. I think there's all types of opportunity for that district to be reinvigorated and revitalized in a lot of ways. And what DIP has been doing there for the past decade has been incredible, nourishing and enriching the hearts and souls and minds right there on that street. It's clear that it's not just the city placing faith in them. We just heard about the county making their decision to invest ARPA funds into a project that DIP's doing right on Washington Street. We've seen private donors make similar decisions of significant amounts there as well. And I think it's one of those public-private sort of things where folks invest in the stuff that makes sense. And DIP clearly, I think, is doing that really, really good work. Washington Street's right on my ward, so that's probably why I'm so chatty about it. I'm pretty sure some folks think I'm chatty about everything, but particularly I'm really, really excited about this on Washington Street and all of what it can mean and what it would do, again, to help High Pointers and residents, and appreciate our discussion and all the incredible work done by staff on this. I know when we first talked about it, we were very clear on the fact that conveyances don't happen often, so it's not lost on me that we don't have a long list of precedents to go off of for our government, that is. And so it did take trying to make sure we can do our due diligence, appreciate legal and the rest of staff who worked with legal on getting it here and getting to this point.
Anyone else?
Yeah, and just to clarify, since I know we were going back and forth on the dates, it's just you all adopting the resolution. The notice has to be published, but then we just have to wait at least 10 days for the deed is what the period is. So there's no other time period that we have to wait. So after it goes to city council, then it'll just be moved forward.
Understood. Good deal.
So when we make the motion in council, we'll have to word it correctly as well. Okay.
Resolution auzing the appropriate official to convey the property.
I'm gonna get them to write that out.
Write
for
that
me.
out.
Yeah, write that out for me. 'Cause, yeah, it'll be me, so let's make sure we get that to me.
So once, Councilman Johnson here, so once again, so after the 30 day, once we vote on it,
No 30 days, 30 days was the sale, that's what I was saying, that once we just, yep, exactly, you vote on it, we publish in the newspaper, and then not less than 10 days, so we have to wait 10 days, then we can convey it.
okay.
Great. Anything else? Okay, now, I'm going to, I don't know if it's gonna be a request at all, but I'm gonna try to make this really brief. But, I've ran into, an issue that keeps coming, at me when we're talking about the East Central area where we've had a number of homes sold. I ran into my fifth family that has been outbidded by, how can I say it, property investors.
Investors,
Yeah. So my thing is this, you know, we worked really hard as a city to kind of clean up on absentee landlords and things of such. We've done a lot of work in background when, in my opinion, we've had our teeth removed on what we can do for people who lease places to less desirable neighbors, drugs, et cetera, And my concern is if we have a lot of corps that aren't there, what are we looking at? Is this a possible, because the ones who are here, who have been informed and changes have been made and they've adjusted and cleaned their places up and so forth, and we're talking about corps that's not even in the state. So if, one thing I don't want us to do is to kind of miss out on complaints and things if stuff starts to happen again. If they're leasing the properties and these complaints are coming back up about, I wanted to make sure that we at least stay on guard on how we address it. I'm still talking to my state reps about what we can do again and what we can get back when it comes to declaring a place like a public nuisance, for example. How much of that we can still try to get back. I don't want to add work to y'all. I'm just making an observation, and it's a concern because, you know, when I don't have anybody from CD here right now, but I know that I've talked to them before, and they've talked about families who've gone through the down payment assistance outbidded for local housing, and that's a concern for me. So, but I just wanted to say my little bit there. I'm done, but I do want us to stay on guard for that.
I mean, is there a next step that's potential in terms of getting like more information or something like that? I mean,
Well, I don't want to necessarily, this is something I think we can probably have the conversations with the police department and code enforcement when it comes to, has your complaints gone up over X amount of time? Has it start to increase again since these people are buying these homes at whatever price and just leasing them to, and then we start having like a lot of calls of services in certain areas that's gone down, where we looked at a heat map one time, believe it or not, I'm not the one that said it, but Main Street, North Main was hotter than parts of the southern part of the city because of calls of service. You know, and that was not the case, I promise you, when we're talking about 2014, 15, it was definitely reversed. But now you're starting to see it's not as high. But you still get them, but not as high. And my concerns are as long as they do their due diligence, I don't want to try to get into who they rent to or lease to, but my thing is that we don't drop the ball and they started doing things and just, you know, overlooking property, et cetera, that we stay on top of it. That's all I'm saying. Okay.
Code enforcement.
Code enforcement, police too. Yeah, this combination. That might be something that's for the Public Safety Committee. But anyway, I'm done. If there isn't anything else,
two more things. Operation Inasmuch is later this month, if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
October 29th. And that's always been a great opportunity for the city to partner with Community Housing Solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm missing the other one. Forgive me. Is it just Community Housing Solutions?
no, it's another one, but I don't know the name of it right now since you brought it up. But go ahead.
But Operation Inasmuch, incredible time to serve a community in our city. And I imagine that information, if it's in the West End neighborhood from 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. And so they're always looking for volunteers who want to sign up and register to come out. They offer breakfast, they offer a really comfortable cotton T-shirt, and you can come out and help
cap.
some folks. And
And a cap?
I didn't get a cap.
I'm sorry.
But I'm asking about that. But it's an incredible time to come out and beautify our city, rehab some properties, work with folks who are in need of that sort of assistance. And it happens twice a year, so October 29th, just for all those listening, I think it's a great time. Kudos to our staff on consistently putting that together. I think it's been happening now for a number of years, despite COVID probably having some disruptions. I know it's happened for a number of years since before I could even recall. And then the other thing I just wanted to highlight, I guess at some point, as it's appropriate, this task force that's happening at the county level, at what point should those conversations, do we need to at least have some kind of briefing here? So that way, as a committee, we're at least talking about it. I don't have the exact answer on when and what the cadence is, but I'm just mindful, as more work gets done. Okay, so yeah, just wanted to highlight that. I know someone's had the chance to sit in and listen in and kind of contribute to that last week where the county and Greensboro and High Point all got to come together and discuss what's happening with regards to homelessness, but inevitably what's happening with regards to housing as well. And it was a really good discussion. As the city manager said, there's much more work that kind of needs to go into it to figure out what that looks like. So hopefully, as that kind of gets figured out, a briefing, I'm thinking, Chairman Williams, if possible, at this level here, just so as a committee, we're at least talking about it and mindful of where the city stands. Because I think at this point, and granted, not that the city needs to, we're a long ways off, I think, from committing to anything with that. But I think that at this point, you've had some of us in those conversations at the staff and council level. But if the city is going to get serious at some point, I imagine it's coming to this committee for us to talk about, and then full council for us to ever talk about. So it might be good for those conversations being brief, so that way, when the time does come, we're abreast of what's going on.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I don't see how that would be too difficult to get some person from that board that's on the committee that's doing the actual work to give a quick briefing to us, or a briefing to this committee, just to update the public here and anyone else that may not be privy to those conversations. So I think that'll be fine.
Okay. Thank you. Those are only two things.
Okay. Anything else? All right, if no one objects, we are